Imagine yourself married to a significant other with a small child. You live in a decent home and even have the luxury of owning a jacuzzi. However, right now your jacuzzi is broken and it's going to take a hard hit to your savings to fix it. Your partner isn't particularly happy with your proposition to fix the jacuzzi, despite your protest that it's important for your back health. Not only are they unhappy with your proposition, the request causes them to bring up all the financial issues arising from your lack of work. Your last job didn't go too well, but as if on perfect cue, another job is offered to you that could solve all of your financial problems. The job could solve all of your problems and allow you to live peacefully with your family. But the job could also cause you great danger and despair. This is simply and somewhat poorly put the setup for a movie called Kill List, a movie released in 2011 that was directed by Ben Wheatley. The movie focuses around Jay, a former soldier and hitman who is rough around the edges and slowly reveals himself to be a bit more ill-tempered than the average person. Shell is a strong and encouraging wife of Jay, who somewhat sparks the conflict with Jay due to her confrontational nature about their financial issues. However, Jay intends to end this conflict through his acceptance of a job proposal he was initially reluctant about by his best friend, Gal. All they have to do is kill 3 people on a list given to them by their unnamed client. This premise may come off as a bit bland at first, and it would be if it weren't for the execution of it. The first thing that I noticed about this film, and probably many others did as well, is that it was not made for an audience. I don't mean this in an edgy, the movie is too smart and above the general public and only people with a 200 IQ and a film studies degree will truly understand and appreciate its perfection kind of way. I'm mostly referring to the dialogue, and how there is hardly what anyone could call exposition in this movie. Is that a bad thing? In this movie, no. Kill List almost feels like a car ride with a family that you hardly know. Perhaps you're meeting up with a friend and caught a ride with a friend of that friend and you are unaware that their whole family would be in the car. As the family talks amongst themselves, you may put your headphones in at first to pass the long ride, but soon you're hearing tidbits of the conversation the family's having, silently trying to piece together what they're discussing and what kind of people they are. Before you know it, you're full on eavesdropping, trying to finish a puzzle in your brain about these new people that you've encountered. The only difference in this situation and Kill List is that Kill List knows that you're eavesdropping and doesn't care. That was a long-winded way to say that the dialogue in Kill List is rich, and even one sentence missed by one character can be an entire concept missed. This isn't unlike human conversation, but it is unlike typical movie conversation. This movie is very raw and it's very unapologetic about it. The acting certainly helps that as well. Great acting and no over-explanations sounds like the perfect recipe for a fantastic horror thriller movie, right? In a way, yeah. I would rather not explain the whole plot of the movie, as it's far better viewed than it is explained. However, even talking about this movie past a quick review pretty much demands talking about the ending, and the ending is what truly makes this movie so alluring, in the best and worst ways, so proceed with caution as spoilers are on the way. If you haven't seen it and refuse to watch it for some reason, or it has been a while since your last viewing, I'll briefly sum up the events leading to the ending. Basically, Jay and Gal end up killing their first and second person on the list, being the priest and the librarian, without much issue. The only oddity is that both people thanked Jay for killing them. The killing of the librarian leads to Jay murdering another person off the list who was involved in what is implied to be a disgusting porn snuff business that the librarian was also a part of. It is here that Jay's anger issues truly come out, and he spends a long time beating the other person to death. This behavior concerns Gal, and the attempt to pull out of the contract somewhat against Jay's will. It doesn't work. I should also mention that Gal receives images of them, and Jay's cat gets murdered, which I just realized should have been called from a billion years away because as soon as you see an animal in a horror movie then it's almost guaranteed to die, which shows that they are being followed. Before I talk about the third kill in the ending, I should say that the character of Fiona, who was kind of a girlfriend to Gal, is consistently a menacing presence in the movie. This is first shown at the beginning when she inexplicably carves a symbol in the back of Jay and Shell's mirror. I wonder if this could be a cult. She is ever present in Shell's home, and Jay also sees her in places that she should not be. Along with people thanking Jay for killing them, and Fiona being peculiar, there's also this doctor that strangely and somewhat offhandedly mentions moving towards the future when shown Jay's cut hand, which was cut by their client in what seemed like somewhat of a strange blood pact. All of this is pretty extreme, disturbing, and intriguing build-up for the end. Does it pay off? Well, let's see. Jay and Gal end up camping outside of the house of their next target, only to be woken up by whistling and chanting. In what I would argue is the most terrifying scene of the movie, Jay and Gal find themselves terrifyingly close to a group of masked people carrying torches and marching towards an unknown destination. They follow them, and to put it shortly, they see a woman being hung in the group, which causes Jay to become angry and shoot the leader. And strangely enough, the leader offers himself to Jay. The group pursues them and severely injures Gal, causing Jay to mercy kill him. Jay returns to a cabin that his family was staying in, and they end up being followed by the cult. Jay goes outside trying to kill cult members, only to be captured and dragged into the woods. Shell tells her son to go upstairs, and she shoots down other cult members, and is eventually also detained. Jay is also put into cult gear, armed with a knife, and forced to fight a mysterious hunchback creature. Jay wins the fight, and as many of you have probably guessed by now, or already know because you watched it, the Hunchback is revealed to be Shell and the son. Jay is proclaimed as the new cult leader, and Fiona, the client, and the doctor are all revealed to be part of the cult. So, is this a good twist? Can this even be classified as one twist? It seems like about... a lot happened in about 2 minutes of the film. What can anyone make of this? Now, I will admit I'm reluctant to say this, as many people and many critics seem to love this film, and I don't blame them, but I've never been more disappointed by a twist in a movie. I want to make it clear that it is the twist I'm disappointed in, not the movie. The movie's amazing. The twist, well, I'm gonna argue not so much. This is one of those films that has kept me up at night trying to piece it together. This could be partially because of its success in disturbing the viewer, but I believe it's also because of my own confusion towards the movie. I don't want to dislike anything about the movie. To me, it ended up being somewhat of a fourth wall-breaking twist, because the movie had me so enraptured that I couldn't help but feel like I missed something major, which would not be difficult in this film, but I don't think I did, and I believe that this is the key to explaining why the twist did not really work out. The basis of pretty much every theory on this movie is that Jay was targeted due to his anger issues and emotional weakness from mishap during a previous job in Kiev. I cannot say that I disagree with this, as his anger is prominent in the film, and it was seemingly a last straw for Jay when Gal was incapacitated by the cult. However, I do not think that it describes his indifference towards killing his family. There are scenes in the movie that show his care towards his family, and even if you believe that he came to hate Shell during the runtime of the film, what proof is there to justify his indifference towards his son? To me, it doesn't seem there is any. And this is where theories often split up. Some ideas cite that Fiona could be responsible for character changes in Jay and possible off-screen changes in Shell. Fiona spent a ton of time with Shell during the course of the film, and there's even a point in the movie that Jay either genuinely sees or hallucinates Fiona on the side of the road. This is often used as proof that Shell may have become part of the cult while Jay and Gal were away, and Jay could have even had his mental stability messed with by Fiona. There's honestly even a possibility that the symbol carved in the mirror helped manipulate the family. This all, however, conflicts with the actions of Shell killing cult members when they were coming into the house. It also conflicts with Jay, as he shoots and kills cult members upon first seeing them too. This brings me to an entire other point, and that's Jay's morality. Throughout pretty much the whole runtime of the film, Jay is presented as an extremely moral figure. It makes us, as an audience, like him more. Even if he's angry and has a rough sense of humor, and is literally a hitman, his moral adds to his character. Both he and Gal justified killing their targets because they were often confirmed malicious people. Well, minus the priest. His wrongdoing is purely speculation by them, but that's beyond the point. Jay is by no means a bad person, at least minus what is said to have happened in Kiev and his reaction to his dead family at the end of the movie. So what keeps Jay from going into a fit of rage and killing as many cult members as he possibly can for fooling him into killing his family? Or better yet, what keeps him from immediately turning on the cult after being armed for the fight? Perhaps he has uncontrollable influence. Which leads to another idea that Shell and the son were drugged, delirious, or manipulated by the cult so that they would appear different from what they truly were in the fight. This would explain why she didn't have the wits to reveal herself to Jay to stop the fighting, but it also does not explain why Jay is so indifferent. Perhaps this indifference is spawned from some sort of final manipulation of Jay before the fight. Maybe he was also drugged. However, I cannot imagine that all of the setup for the movie and Jay being so unstable just amounts to, oh, he was just drugged, or, oh, he was just hypnotized. Whoops, too bad he slaughtered his whole family. Whoa! We all make mistakes, guys. I do believe that his change in character is heavily implied to be piled up stress, especially considering drugs would conflict pretty much everything prefaced. Perhaps it's a mixture, but does that truly justify him not caring about the death of his family? Was it some mixture of brainwashing and stress seen partially on screen and partially off screen? Maybe Shell didn't even join the cult. Maybe she was part of it the whole time and that's why she encouraged the job? If that's true, then perhaps a friendship with Fiona and Shell makes more sense, even though Shell was shooting her own cult members at the end of the movie. Or maybe they were both part of the cult and they were brainwashed at the beginning so they don't remember. Therefore, Jay's leader transition is pure for the cult, and killing Shell and their son enlightens him so then he awakens to his new cult status, which makes him not angry. Wouldn't that make even less sense? I have no idea anymore. What I do know, however, is that this twist was definitely not the best, at least in my opinion. Maybe I'm slightly biased due to the whole evil cult trope just not doing it for me. Either way, I think that there's a difference in leaving horrors undescribed and unexplained in movies to create farther audience engagement and tension, and having so many loose ends that it leaves the viewer feeling as though they've caught themselves in the world's largest spiderweb. I think that movies like Kill List are amazing, and honestly I would love to see more films executed like it was. But perhaps the director, who to my knowledge also wrote it, was a bit overzealous with the twist ending. So it's this movie that got me thinking, how does one make a twist in horror work? Well, on the outside it seems simple. Movies like Psycho, Saw 1, Drag Me to Hell, and many more were able to have effective twists, despite what your opinions on the actual film might be. Are twists like the one in Psycho so shocking because of all the build-up, or do twists solely depend on stretching societal norms at the time of the film? Do they rely on being disturbing? Perhaps it's a mixture. However, this answer just doesn't satisfy my curiosity. I never really thought extensively about the twist as a storytelling device until I watched Kill List, and I think that's because it had so many perfect preparations for a twist ending, or at least some sort of revelation that would change our perceptions of the characters at the end. The movie had consistent universal logic, subtle and interesting story build-up, and characters that were actually intriguing enough for us to care about them getting involved in some horrifying twist. Yet, I still thought it fell short. I would argue that the only time the film somewhat broke its own logic was at the very end, with Jay, which I've already talked about enough. Is that it though? It got me thinking, does it mean that maybe, just maybe, the art of the twist only relies on its story and not the rules of storytelling? Perhaps I'm not saying anything new, or maybe I'm reading too deep into this, but either way I do have an argument for this. Spoilers for those of you who don't know, but most of you probably do, so yeah. When the audience finds out that Norman Bates' mother was dead and he had been switching from himself to her personality the whole time, it was shocking. At a time when mental health was less known about and discussed, the twist was even more shocking. Psycho was breaking norms of the time while also being disturbing and effective. Then again, it also followed the rules of storytelling and was extremely well written and made for a film. Can a twist work in a movie that doesn't really have these things? This is going to be somewhat weird and specific, but I do believe there are movies that do this. My personal example is a film called Bad Match, released in 2017. Now of course quality, especially in any art form, is pretty subjective, so I can't understand anyone who may disagree with me here. Would I say this movie is the worst pile of garbage I've ever seen? Far from it. Is it a masterpiece of modern cinema? I'd say it's farther from that. The movie has an extremely unlikable main character, and although I believe that this is a purpose and ties in with the ending, it makes the movie much harder to engage with up until that point. Many of the other characters are generally bland, although I did think the dialogue was pretty good for the characters. There are also quite a few times that the characters break their own logic and do things that make pretty much no sense. And also one of the ending scenes that was supposed to be serious was just extremely funny. This was, at least from what I can find, a directorial debut from David Chirchillo, so I can't really harp on the minor mistakes. Also, the twist I'm about to go on about was both predictable and not predictable, and you'll see why. If you haven't seen this movie, it's still a fun watch despite me kind of discrediting it here. If you refuse to watch it, I'll give a brief summary. Basically, our main character, named Harris, wants to get that coochie. He uses Tinder head over heels to do this, an app that allows you to swipe left or right on people until you get a match. When Harris the stud isn't getting girls, he's at work playing video games online, mostly with a friend named Shadow Man. Eventually he meets a girl who isn't too happy about his lying and wanting to be in a relationship with his hit it and quit it attitude. When a girl, named Riley, finds out that Harris has been lying to her about this, she becomes extremely upset with him. She continues to text him relentlessly until she threatens suicide. Harris threatens to call the police, but when she says no, he just kinda listens to her and goes to his apartment for some reason, but he got gamed because she was actually fine. After this, Harris is fired from his job for a series of tweets that he made, but he didn't actually make, about hating his job, and the next day he gets arrested for having child porn on his computer, which he didn't actually download. Keep in mind this happens in about 5 minutes, so it kinda went from 0 to 100 real fast. Harris, of course, suspects Riley. He gets bail and is ready to get a confession from her. He catfishes, drugs, and captures her, and for some reason thinks that this will work. At this point, it has become obvious to the audience that she most likely had no idea about the tweets or the child porn. Also, it's important to mention that his lawyer was consistently calling him on this night. Riley manages to convince him to untie her to look better for the confession, and she escapes, but doesn't actually because Harris stabs her to death. So I would like you all to guess what the ending is going to be if you haven't seen it. A, it was actually Harris the whole time. B, it was double cross and it really was Riley the whole time. C, it was actually the police plotting against him. D, the phone did it. Well, unfortunately, all of those would be wrong. The person who actually did this all was Shadow Man? Don't remember who that is? I didn't either until it hit me that this twist ending was pretty great. The reason I said earlier that this twist ending was both predictable and not was because I feel that the audience pretty much knows that the girl isn't behind all the fake tweets and child porn on his computer. For any of you that have seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. That aspect wasn't really subtle. However, I definitely didn't see the Shadow Man twist coming. If you haven't seen it, this may seem like kind of a cop-out twist, but it actually makes a lot of sense from the setup. Harris is set up to be a pretty typical asshole through the whole movie, and like I said before, this is to the movie's detriment. Up until this twist, Harris doesn't really go through a character change, he just continually suffers from his own poor choices. Does anyone deserve to be fired from their job and go to jail for something that they didn't do, even if they're an asshole sometimes? Of course not, but it's these situations that show Harris as a character is the one at fault for his own misfortune. He insulted Shadow Man, he lied to women, he went against his lawyer by capturing Riley and trying to force a confession, which ended up in him killing her. And in turn, he was the one caught by the police at the end, and he was the one who presumably suffered the consequences. The movie is an attempt on horror while also being a character study on Harris and the people like Harris, who don't take responsibility for their actions, and that's why this twist is great and makes so much sense in my mind. Okay, I know that this is giving the movie too much credit. I cannot imagine this movie was supposed to be extremely deep analysis of the modern American stud. All I was trying to do is explain why I believe the twist works so well in a movie that I didn't like nearly as much. And I do believe that it's safe to conclude twists do not work in even some of the best written, acted, and directed cinema, and perhaps it's all up to the nature of the story itself. Overall, I love Kill List, except I don't think that the story, even though it had proper foreshadowing, universal logic, and amazingly written and acted characters, really fit with the twist at all. I can't say that I like a film like Bad Match, but I do love its twist despite the rocky road getting there. These are just my thoughts, however. It's difficult to make a good horror movie, and it's even harder to make a good twist. My opinion may be that horror movies are better when the focus is taken off the shock and put more into working with the story, but that doesn't mean I'm right. There are people that will watch Kill List and love all of it or hate all of it, etc. Despite my opinions on how to do a horror movie twist, I do believe that everyone can agree a good twist and a good horror movie make for a great movie, and that's what most of us want, right? And that's the end of my movie spiel. If anyone stuck around this long, thank you. Feel free to give me feedback or something. Maybe you can stick around for another video or two by subscribing. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me, so goodbye. This premise may come off as a bit that was directed by Ben. The movie focuses around Jay, a fucking fuck, okay. The 200 IQ in a film... I can't do the funny part. Will truly understand its... oh my fucking god. Will truly understand and appreciates it. I'll get through it next time. Kind of a girlfriend to Jet? Yeah. I keep on wanting to say Gel. It's not fucking Jet. That's not a name. Jay and Gal end up camping. C-A-M-P-F. Okay. Or Jay may have even been mental. What? What does that sentence mean? I need to change that. Okay. And Jay could have even had his mental stability. Haha. You just can't say haha. Like I just write that a lot because I find it funny, but that just doesn't come out good. Or maybe they were both, was that a voice crack? Okay, no. Please don't. Okay. Oh my fucking god. The person who actually did this all was, what was his name? I literally want to die.